Hello beautiful, and thank you for clicking on today's video. I often get told that I have a very organized house, and I think that's because I've created systems and boundaries to make sure that my house pretty much stays organized by itself. I've talked about this on YouTube before, and I can leave a couple videos on the subject of cleaning, organizing, and having your house work for you easier, linked down below. But I've also helped people in my everyday life with this sort of conundrum as well. So today I wanted to make a short, bite-sized video with 5 tips to stay clutter-free. Number 1, if you are no stranger to this channel, you will probably already guess what number 1 is, and that is to just have less stuff. Less inventory, less to manage, less to clean, less to think about. It's not about having nothing to manage. It's not about having the least amount possible, but I find all too often people who have an overabundance of inventory in their house tend to struggle with keeping things neat, tidy, clean, and organized simply because it's more than any one person or 2 people can manage. So if you would like your house to stay organized a little bit more effortlessly, try doing a declutter. And if you need inspiration, I have my entire declutter playlist linked down below. This will help not only your space stay more organized, it will help you have more time to keep things organized, although they will stay organized likely much easier, giving you time to do other things. And it will also lift this weight of having too much stuff off of your shoulders. This is sort of like a background noise kind of weight that I think a lot of us don't realize is sitting on our shoulders until it's gone. So that's tip number 1. Tip number 2 is right alongside tip number 1, and that is to minimize before you organize. A lot of people go in and they organize and they get it all tight and neat and perfect and tidy. However, then they do a declutter and they realize that things aren't working in the same way that they needed to. So I often recommend to do a minimizing before it organizing so you know what you actually have to work with. This also works really well because I find that organization that's too tight tends to not be upkept very well. And if you have less stuff, you're gonna have more room for those storage bins to slide next to each other, more room for the storage bins you use to not be overflowing, and overall everything's gonna run a little bit better and a little bit more smoothly. Number 3, very similar to what I just mentioned with minimize before you organize, is to have movable space around your organization systems. I see all too often beautifully organized spaces that only ever last for a day or 2. And I find more often than not, that is because the organization is too tight, making it inconvenient. If you have 2 storage bins sitting next to each other that require you to take off a lid and move something to the left and then move something to the right in order to get to the bin you need to access, it's not functional enough to stay organized seamlessly and effortlessly. So I always try to allot for like a 1/2 inch of space of any given side of any given organizational bin. That way things can slide in and slide out very effortlessly, and they're much more likely to stay organized that way. The same is true for me personally. I don't like things being organized down to the detail because I find that it's too much effort to upkeep. So instead of having a bin of like your socks and then your winter socks and then your stockings and then your little booties, having everything really very specifically categorized where it's kind of like niche, I just have a bin of socks, and then that works really well for me. This one's kind of personal preference, but I do find that people who have trouble staying organized do tend to do better with broader categories, bigger bins, kind of just to dump things in, push it away. It's organized out of your space, out of your mind. But my biggest tip of all is to leave room on the sides of your organization bins and also leave room in the organization bin itself. If you are organizing something like, say, your nuts in your pantry, I always try to buy a bin just a little bit bigger than what I need. That way, if there is overflow, there's space for it, but also it doesn't feel so cramped and cluttered when things are put back where they're supposed to be. Number 4 is something that I also mentioned in number 3. You're gonna find that a lot of these tips are kind of interlocking, and I put them in this specific order for a reason. But number 4 is to not over-organize. If you are a naturally organized person, this rule doesn't really apply to you, but then again, you're probably not watching this video if you're a naturally organized person. But I find so often people will find organization compartments and tools and ideas on things like Pinterest that are overly categorized and overly organized. And for that reason, for the average everyday person, they're hard to upkeep with. The rule of thumb that I sort of like to stick to is it has to be as easy to put away as it is to leave out. So for me, that's large bins with broad categories and no lids with lots of movable space to be able to pull the bin out and put the bin away very, very easily. I find that people who over-organize into little boxes inside of medium-sized boxes inside of big boxes tend to be the ones that end up leaving stuff out because it's difficult to open 3 boxes to get the thing back where it needs to go. And number 5, just like I said for number 4, is it has to be as easy to leave out as it is to put away. This might look different person to person, and I also recommend looking at your daily habits and then determining where organization needs to exist. Examples in my house are I had a small pile of dog-related supplies by my front door and by my back door, and for that reason I realized that I needed organization by my front door and by my back door. So if you look at your life's natural habits and where clutter tends to accumulate, you can better determine where organization needs to exist. Don't make it too complicated. Go with the flow of what your household is already running like, and don't over-organize, otherwise it's not going to be upkept. And that is going to be it for the video. I wanted to make this video very bite-sized, very actionable, and very quick to put into practice in your own home. So if you found this video helpful, please leave this emoji in the comments down below to not only let me know that you have an amazing attention span and that this video was helpful for you, but also to help the video get pushed to new people who might need this advice and help in their own homes. And with all of that being said, I will see you in a couple of days with another video.